just kind of broadly, media days is also an opportunity for Brett Yormark to speak quite a bit about the state of the Big 12 and where things are at. And there was really one thing specifically that he said. He said a lot of things. Look, for people that have listened to Rock Chalk Sports Talk even prior to this show, you know that I have a bit of a love-hate relationship with Brett Yormark. I think he is sometimes so smart, but also so sadistic in some of the ideas that he has for the Big 12, that he's the type of person where he's got a great creative mind, I think, but you got to kind of keep him on the rails. He's had some crazy ideas. But one thing that was new for this season for the Big 12 that I specifically want to talk about with you, Kevin, here is Brett Yormark said Big 12 preseason polls, no more. Getting rid of the Big 12 preseason poll. And part of Yormark's explanation basically was, hey, it's detrimental to the Big 12 because the Big 12 has a lot of parity, as we saw with Arizona State being a team that was picked to be at the bottom of the conference last year, winning the conference. And basically the argument being, when you have situations like that where teams quote unquote overperform their expectations, it hurts them in terms of what their rankings could be, right? Like if Arizona State was picked to finish 15th in the Big 12 and they win the Big 12 conference versus they were picked to finish second in the Big 12 and they win the Big 12 conference, the idea is that if they were picked to finish second, there would be an inherent more bias there positively towards them versus negative bias if they're picked near the bottom of the conference. So I don't know. What are your thoughts? What's your take on no more preseason polls? Obviously, it gives us a lot less to talk about because now we can't say, "Oh my gosh, Kansas was picked here." Back and forth. But overall, I was just curious what you thought about that.
I think it's a little silly because I'll be honest with you. Part of me, it's funny you say that about Brett Yarmark. I used to have an editor like that who come up with the best ideas, like creative ways to look at something that was off the beaten path. Hey, have you tried this angle with the story? Oh, that's great. But then there are some times that you almost had to rein him in a little bit and be like, no, that's a terrible idea. Like that would never work. And
like playing the Big 12 tournament in New York City.
Yeah. And so there's definitely that. I get where he's coming from because I do think that there's a perception there that, hey, this team was picked to finish last. They're having a great season, but how good can they really be if everybody thought that they stunk? The issue is, Nick, you're removing the Big 12 poll, but you're not removing every poll. You're not removing every ranking. You're not calling up Lindy's and being like, don't rank the Big 12 in Lindy's or Athlon or Phil Steele, and I bring that up because, I had a hand in writing the Big 12 preview for Lindy's. And so when you look at it from that perspective, people are still going to go different places and see the rankings. And so even if it's not, well, the Big 12 media thought these would be here, you're still going to have enough rankings out there, whether it's ESPN's FPI, which I know is a computer-based ranking and is awful, and different people ranking. You can still go out there and find like, okay, what did people think about Arizona before the season started? And you can find that. And so I don't think that removing the Big 12 poll itself is going to really change anything. Like you said, it does take away a talking point where you're like, man, the Big 12 media really doesn't believe in Kansas this year or whatever. But I don't think that for what he's talking about, and again, like I get the general point that a team that's ranked really low, if they're 6-1, 7-8 weeks into the season, and it looks like they're pretty good, they might not be getting the benefit of the doubt nationally because everybody thought, hey, this team is not actually that good. And in the Big 12's case, there's a national perception that there are no elite teams in the Big 12, true or untrue. And, last year it was probably fairly true. I mean, Arizona State, I believe, lost to Cincinnati, at one point. Could have lost very easily to Kansas in Tempe, and got a touchdown in the final 20 seconds to win that game. And so there's not necessarily that elite of the elite team in there. And I think that's the perception of it. And so even if you win the Big 12, if you go 10-2 or whatever your record may be, I think there's still a feeling of, well, they probably just didn't have to beat anybody to get there, or the schedule fell their way, or A, B, or C. The issue is, again, like removing the Big 12 poll doesn't change that. I don't think people still have the ability to go and look at all that. We've talked on the show last year, Nick. I thought Arizona State was a year away. I thought Arizona State would be good this year with all the young guys that they had, all the non-seniors that they had. And I put that in my preview, sort of a, hey, Arizona State's going to take their lumps this year, but this is a talented team and they're going to be pretty good, in 2025. Turns out they were a year ahead of schedule. And I do think that early perception maybe harmed them from a national perspective standpoint when it came to rankings and all of that. But I don't think that removing one poll is going to change people's ability to find out what people think of that team heading into the year.
Yeah, on the surface, I think it makes total sense.
Yeah.
Like you're trying to basically give a level playing field to every team in your conference to where they do have the benefit of the doubt or of not having any bias against them potentially if they were maybe picked lower in the preseason poll. But kind of as you outlined, first of all, it's impossible to eliminate all bias, right? I mean, that's inherently part of I think part of human nature, truthfully, when it comes to these types of things. And then on top of that, you're right. There's still going to be the AP Top 25. There's still going to be every other poll around the country that's going to be ranking what they think the team should be in the preseason. So if you were able to eliminate every poll in existence, then okay, maybe, sure. But at the end of the day, I kind of tend to agree with you. I don't think it's going to change that much of the perception, right? Like
Brock Osweiler said today for ESPNU, was asked who could be this year's Arizona State, and he picked KU and Utah. And I think, Nick, as KU guys, we know KU is typically being picked 7th or 8th, kind of right in that middle, just behind, sort of the teams that a lot of people feel are quote unquote contenders. And I think that if Kansas winds up having that kind of run, being 10-2, going to the Big 12 title game, and they're saying, hey, can the Big 12 maybe get two teams in? People are still going to be able to look at Kansas and be like, well, what did people think before the season? And they can find that even though there was no Big 12 poll this year.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's get into what Lance Leipold had to say. He spoke quite a bit today on Wednesday at Big 12 Media Days, had a lot of interesting things to say. Couple common denominators was one, Jalen Daniels was talked about a lot, and I think probably for good reason, truthfully. The other note, and we were kind of talking about this before we even started recording today's show. Sure. The other interesting thing is, feels like this year, kind of across the board, there wasn't as much maybe like team news from different teams around the league of like, oh, this is a player to watch, like these are guys to watch, or injuries, whatever it may be. The one big note for Kansas was Bryce Foster was originally expected to be at Big 12 Media Days. Then he didn't show up. And then Lance Leipold revealed on Wednesday afternoon that he had tweaked an injury, didn't really go into specific details about it, and basically said that he needed to undergo some minor surgery. The positive news on that is that Lance Leipold did not seem concerned about it, and that they expect Bryce Foster to be good to go by around the start of fall camp. So he might not be 100% by the time fall camp starts, but expecting no limitations basically at the end of fall camp and into the start of the season, which is huge news because Bryce Foster was the only Kansas player picked to the All Big 12 team. So, and obviously we know how good he is and how important he will be for Kansas this season. So that's fantastic news that he is going to be healthy. And I think you would take the trade-off of Bryce Foster not coming to media days versus making sure he's fully healthy heading into the season. So wanted to touch on that as well. But for Lance Leipold, again, a lot of Jalen Daniels discussion, which I think was fair. A lot of talk about the new stadium. One particular quote I think really stood out to me, Kevin, is Lance Leipold talking about Kansas football and saying, who's investing more money in football right now than KU? And when you look at what KU's doing with the football stadium, he's kind of got a point right now. Like it's obvious that Lance Leipold and Travis Goff and the entirety of the Kansas athletic department and Kansas donors are in full support of the football stadium and making sure that it's going to be a really cool thing once it gets to August 23rd, which is the first game. And then obviously going even further into the future of completing the entire project and turning it into the entire gateway of what it was kind of envisioned to be in the first place.
Yeah, people seem to have a lot of mixed feelings about that quote. And part of the reason is that part of the reason Kansas is spending so much, Nick, is because it took so long, right, to start addressing Memorial Stadium when everybody else was building up their stuff, in the 90s, 2000s, 2010s. Kansas wasn't, and so now the bill has come due. It's expensive, and I think you can feel both ways, right? You can feel like, well, this should have been done a long time ago, while also sort of crediting Lance Leipold for giving a product that people want to donate to and pay money for the stadium. Travis Goff for being able to take advantage of that and having the vision of, hey, we got our first, little sparks of success. Let's start a fire. And the donors and boosters for stepping up in that regard. And Nick is somebody that we've talked about. I've gotten to tour, the new booth. It's not something that's just a facelift, right? Like they're rebuilding this thing, and it's beautiful and new and has all these great things about it. It's not a fresh coat of paint. And so I think that's the other thing that adds up to that cost. And the other thing that I'd say just real quick about it, my neighbor, when we moved in here, Nick, like they did the inspection process and everything, as you do when you get a house. And they wound up having a flood shortly after moving in. And it turns out that one of the contractors working on the house, when he was working on it, put a screw into the wall and hit a pipe and basically poked a hole in a pipe. And it wasn't something that you would find through inspections, right? It's in the wall. But at that point, it's not about what happened in the past or the fact that guy did. It's about, hey, I've got a leak in my house that I need to fix. And I think that Goff and the KU administration deserves a lot of credit for really attacking that and saying, look, would this have been a lot cheaper if it had been done in 2015 or 2010 or, just capitalizing on the Orange Bowl year and starting in 2008? Yeah, but there's a leak here and it's got to be plumbed, whatever happened before. And I think they've done a good job of that.
Yeah. And I would reiterate this, which is, and you mentioned it, this is about as a total rebuild as you could possibly get.
Oh, I mean, people won't recognize it.
It's complete. I mean, it was completely tore down, the entire side of the stadium, the west side of the stadium. And obviously the eastern side is still up, and the plans to fully rebuild that side will then happen after the 2025 season, I think. And so, yeah, it'll be night and day, I think. And I think you'll kind of already get to recognize that. Like, I almost wonder if the fact that it's going to be not fully completed, it's, you'll have sort of the old 1/3, almost half the stadium, will almost maybe put it even into more perspective of like just the absolute, so much requirement needed to build what they've done, because you'll get to see the new versus the old a little bit. If you're a fan going to games, you get to experience the new side versus that old side that they're going to be finishing after the season. So I almost wonder if that'll further drive that point home. But yeah, it's very exciting. And I think even more so, you consider, we talked about it before already on the show, but you can't really overestimate the power of a home crowd, and especially at your home stadium, and especially, going through your regular pregame where you're not in a foreign locker room, you're not in Arrowhead Stadium, right? All those things,
yeah,
like that's going to add up. And so I think that's really, really cool what Kansas has done to this point. And I'm hoping that they're able to have a very successful rollout of the new stadium, because I think KU fans have earned it. KU fans have earned it waiting for a new stadium like this. And obviously the players and everybody else have earned it as well through what they've done over the past handful of years under Lance Leipold to get to this moment. So, and, Travis Goff has made pretty clear statements several times of, the stadium is not a thing without players like Devin Neal, who are never going to play in it, but obviously had a major impact in getting Kansas to a situation where they could achieve it.